Welcome to the REI Hot Seat. We've got questions of the week, and I have one for you, Jake.
Okay.
And you're not prepped for this, so these are the best. When is maximizing CMHC leverage a good idea? Or said differently, is maximizing CMHC leverage, just bringing it all the way to the fullest extent, is it a good idea?
Good question. Good question. Okay. So we'll dive into it, just my opinion. It's a double-edged sword, I think is the best way to explain it, right? Where we have, in many times, it's probably one of the best things you can do, and other times it's not one of the best things you can do. Going back to earlier in my career, you'd talk with the kind of seasoned vets, the older guys or girls that have been in the industry for a long time, and they would hate CMHC deals.
Yep.
And I'm sure you experienced this as well. And I would just,
it's a head scratcher.
It was a head scratcher for me because I was, less knowledgeable. I was earlier in my career. And I go, what do you mean? You can put 80, 95% loan to value on this building. What do you mean you don't even want to consider CMHC, right? And the answer would always be the same thing, which is like, they want your firstborn, they want your right arm, whatever. It's, I'm sure you've heard that. And, they want too much, and, we don't want to over leverage our buildings. And so it really depends. I guess the short answer is it really depends on your buying profile. How long are you keeping the buildings? Why are you buying the buildings? Where's the capital coming from? Or is it, how much cash do you have to buy the building? So it's more of an investment kind of theory or ethos, I should say, rather than is it good or is it bad, right? And that's something that I know, Dave, you do very well, is when you do your intake calls, when you bring new clients in, when or old clients, and you just got to catch up, right? Like, we really dive into, well, what is the reason for investing? Because then that is going to tailor how we make the investment work.
Yep.
So it's impossible to answer yes or no, it's a bad or good idea. It's more to do with what are you looking for?
Yeah.
For example, I'll let you go for the example, right? So give me an example of why leverage it to maximum 95 or 85 or whatever you're eligible to do, and why not?
Okay. I'll give you a couple real world examples. So we bought 12 townhomes. This was there was a time back in my day, the golden age, where you could get 100 points through MLI Select for energy efficiency. For those that don't know, basically, you make the building more efficient and you could crank the leverage up to 95% loan to value and the maximum 50-year amortization. We did that. So we bought these townhomes, we improved the efficiency, we renovated all of the units, cranked up the leverage, it's cash flowing positive, stripped out all of the money, and a group came out and bought it off of us. So it was a great, honestly, it worked perfect because we were able to hammer the leverage and dispose of the asset at a peak value, because the people buying it could then buy something for, very limited capital in. I don't want to get lost in the weeds here, but the reason they bought it, if you're wondering, is their whole metric was cash on cash return. So if you're in for a $5 million property, let's say for $500,000, your 2% annual increase is going to dramatically annualize your cash on cash, if that makes sense. Anyways, we got lost in the weeds. So that worked out great, right? We had a vision of where we were going. We have high risk tolerance, and we understood what we were doing and why we were doing it. We were prepared to hold the property, so we got it. Okay. Alternatively, we have seen numerous now in Ontario, but for a while, if you think Alberta was a good example, people flocking over there. They're buying new construction, 95% LTV. They're in for very little money. The problem with that is all of those new units are getting peak market rent, arguably above peak market because it's a brand new unit. Once you start to refill those, even if the market has stayed the same from a rental perspective, you're almost certainly not going to hit those rents because now it's not a brand new unit, it's a beat up unit, even if you refresh it. Okay, that's one. Two, God forbid, and now we're seeing it, rents start to drop. So if you're 95% LTV, your cash flow is razor thin. Right, you're at a 1.1 debt cover. You have limited wiggle room. So if rents start dropping, or expenses start climbing, which, by the way, both of those are happening, right? You are now underwater on a building. And the problem is you're way over leveraged, meaning you are in a building that you probably, without the leverage, couldn't have afforded.
Yes.
And so you are now going to potentially get buried very quickly. It's like Tetris, right? They say divorce and going bankrupt, they happen really slow and then they happen really quickly. That's the theory. It's the exact scenario. Everything starts to build and then it just cascades, game's over.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking to clients, and my clients will know I'm pretty risk adverse with them, and I really try to understand where their risk is and then maybe a step back from that. There's very few groups in my entire database that I think should be maximizing, hammering the gas on 95% LTV strategies. Most of them tailoring it back. That's why we do, on all of our analysis, show 85% LTV to the max. Yep. And if you have to stretch it further to make the deal work, it's not a good deal. If you have to stretch it further to afford it, don't do it. Just scale it back a little bit. And the old dogs in the industry, the men and women that have been here forever, they've seen what we've been dealing with over the last while, and we talk about it every podcast. They're all buying again. And they're not hitting the gas at 95% LTV. They've been sitting on cash. They're refinancing. They're keeping it 65, 75, maybe 85, and they're buying.
Yeah, and a lot of people were the theory or the investment strategy that a lot of people were using was when prior to the dip in the market, what we'll call it, you could go in, you could buy a building for 95% loan to value, and when the market's appreciating and rents are appreciating, and these buildings are worth more in the next year or 2 years at 95, there's less risk there, well, at least perceived risk at that time. But then today's point, things have shifted.
Yes.
The interesting part now is, and maybe I'll throw this back to you, Dave. So if let's say you're a newer investor, okay, getting 85% loan to value CMHC is the only way you're going to be able to get into the market because you have limited capital. Maybe it's a trick question, but anyways, would you recommend a client, if that's the only way for them to get into the market, would you recommend that they use that strategy?
85? 95.
We can't even get 95 anymore unless you go affordable or something like that. But let's say max leverage.
Yeah. Would I think it's a good deal? A good idea?
Would you recommend somebody do that to get into the market? Because I'm sure there's a number of people watching that want to get into their first investment.
Yes.
And their capital's limited.
Great question.
Right? So it's like, do I go conventional? Do I go CMHC?
Got it.
There's many ways you can answer this.
Yes, if we're being genuine so first of all, the caveat, it fits your risk profile. Okay? Done. So now we're in that pocket of it does fit. If the underwriting is done correctly.
Yes.
85% LTV, true 85 LTV, when you're at least a 1-2 debt cover, and we have all of the CMHC benchmarks and true expenses, and we're not grinding everything down, we're actually beefing everything up, then yes, right? You have that buffer. The problem is people see a 1-2 debt cover, 85% loan to value, but their expenses are light. Their utility costs are off and vague, and they're using the lowest possible benchmark for each possible thing, and all of a sudden it's not 1-2 debt cover, it's actually 1-1, 1-1-4, 1-1-5, and it's like, and
that's the challenge. I know CMHC and the underwriters there have become more scrutinous on these things, right? But historically, they would go off of what was positioned in front of them.
Yeah.
Right. I've had deals where they pushed back and said, well, I think your rents are too high, or I think this. But then I've also had deals where we just put something through and they go, yeah, sure. And they fund it at 85, 95, 90%. And it's like at that time the numbers were aggressive and then the market shifted. Right.
Yes.
So a lot of little things there. So
and I think what you're look, this is a story as old as time. When you follow the market, this will happen. Right? The market's been coming down. Now it seems to be somewhat stabilized. Bunch of people piling into the market. It usually goes the people that have been doing this longer, people have more capital, the sophisticated buyers, then everybody else starts to trickle in. When the market starts to climb again and starts to take off like it was, what you're going to see is the men and women who go 95% LTV look like heroes, because that's what we saw before. Yeah. Right? And those are the people that everybody goes, holy smokes, how did this person do this? They're the rags to riches overnight success story. Yeah. And then the market goes down and all of them get washed out. We've seen every one of them get washed out. So it's like, if you're in this for the long haul, which every one of our clients seems to be, if you can just breathe a little bit, not cut up, and that your buddy's doing 95% LTV and just doubled their money, and you just stay at that max 85, 1-2 true deck cover, you're gonna make it.
Yeah.
Boring real estate.
Yeah.
It's sexy in the long term. Just make sure you're doing it right.
And again, right, that comes back to that investment ethos, right? Like, why are you buying these buildings? Is it generational wealth? Is it to give it to your kids? Is it, if that's the case, then yes, maybe the higher leverage might be a better opportunity for you. What's interesting now, though, is with the new CMHC guidelines, with the new underwriting, with the cutbacks on the points program through MOI, and with the dip in the market, I'm actually quite bullish on maximizing loan to value right now, right? Because it's like, okay, if we're close to the bottom or at the bottom, we're going to start coming back up, and you're maximizing now with proper underwriting, to your point, then that might be a good strategy for you as well. Right?
Yeah, like at the avoidance of timing the market, I totally agree with you, right? Like, if you're hitting a 1-2 debt cover, you can sustain a drop. So the people that did this properly 4 years ago, they're still okay.
Yes.
Right? It's thin, but they're okay. If you do it now, I don't know if we're going to, like, it would be a catastrophe in the general economy if we saw a similar drop again. It's just unreasonable to think. So,
and we don't know what's going to happen, honestly. So it's, again, I think it comes back to fundamentals, right? Good underwriting. Get your numbers solid.
Yeah.
Make sure that, okay, maybe you do want to go max loan to value. Well, then why don't you look at a building that's more within your snack bracket, right? Rather than stretching yourself into a 50 unit building, because you can with 95 or 90% loan to value. Okay, well, why don't you just go buy that 10 unit building, do the same strategy, but then at least you got your safety blanket there, right? You can afford that building.
Yes.
But you're just utilizing a smart program, because you say, okay, well, I'm going to buy this one now, and if I get 85 or 90% loan to value, I still have enough money to actually buy another building. But let's get this stabilized first.
You know what it's like? You go to lease a car. This is timely. You go to lease a car, and you're like, hey, this is my payments. And they just try to jam you up with just payments, not what you're actually financing, the total cost. Right. And the solution for them is, hey, instead of being 48 months, we'll just stretch that bad boy out further, and your payments go down. And it's like, just because you can afford it from a cash flow perspective doesn't mean you should do it, because one little screw up.
But then I would also argue the same thing. It's almost exactly the same conversation as the CMHC, which is like, if you have recurring cash flow and you can understand the risk of stretching out that amortization on the car.
100%.
Right. It's also that way, because you can look at it as, okay, if I have an investment somewhere and it's bringing me in my $1,200 a month, but I can stretch that payment out, and then I can go to the car. You just got to worry about the negative equity at the end. So it's a little bit of a different.
Right. Think of the townhome example. The people who bought that, like, that's their core model. So they're stretched razor thin, but it's still working for them because they have spent an immense amount of time stress testing their underwriting. Like, they have a team of people. Like, these guys weren't new. So they're looking at what happens if. And when things were going crazy and the market was exploding, you probably remember, people were buying deals, firm, multifamily deals, having never seen them. Like, it was insane. It's when we did the least amount of deals because we were pumping the brakes, right?
Yeah.
So I think what you're seeing is right now more than ever is people have been educated, and people want, like, it used to be me stress testing deals with clients going, whoa, hang on, Jake, if you move this number from here to here, this whole thing collapses, right? Now they're like, we actually have to almost go the other way, which is like, no, I built cushions on that, Jake. If I keep putting cushions, we're going to talk you out of a deal, right? It's in summary, look, leverage isn't bad. It's a tool. But as long as you actually know when to use it, then it can be, your greatest asset. It's like fire. I think I've heard this before, right? So deploying it in the right time, it can either, create a fire for a campfire or burn your house down.
Yeah.
So
I like that.
Not mine.
Let's end on that one.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed this topic. Remember, sign to the insider list. Exclusive off-market deals. You'll get all the good stuff that we talk about comes straight to you. You get the emails from us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and
we've got a lot of off-market inventory coming. You're signing up a boatload of listings right now.
Sure are.
So there's an immense amount of stuff coming that is only going to go to the insider list. A lot of our stuff's getting sold before it even gets out there to the mass audience. So Doesn't cost anything. So follow
And it gets sold to you on the insider list.
That's right.
That's where it gets
Yeah,
sold.
that's who are buying it. Yeah. So thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.